Hey, this is Brandon Crawford from the San Francisco Giants, and you're listening to Torture Cast.
You're listening to a podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants.
Let's go, Giants!
With hosts Willie Dills, Chad King, Ben Lee, and Eric Nathanson. Dedicated to the greatest team in Major League Baseball, the San Francisco Giants. This is Torture Cast.
Standing on time, not gonna stop. We came to play, ain't slowing down. Falling on, we're here to stay, and we're stomping on whatever's in our way. I'm feeling like a Giant tonight.
It's Monday, April 3rd, 2017, and this is episode 117 of the Torture Cast, the podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants. And this is one of my favorite podcasts of the year, except for the ones that we've recorded after they win the World Series. Of course, our season preview podcast. And welcoming to the stage today, of course, are Eric Nathanson and Ben. Ben, how you doing?
I'm here, guaranteed, and ready to talk about guessing at things that I get wrong every year. Let's do it.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later. These numbers that we're not
I am
so ready.
on. I am so ready to be wrong again that I just hope that I'm wrong in the right direction, guys. That's all that I'm hoping for this year.
And Eric, I know it's a little late for you out there in Florida, but you got some, you got some gummy bears keeping you awake, right?
Yeah, and A's Angels is on the screen. You know, you can't hate watching Mike Trout play baseball. So I'm just happy baseball's back. It's been nothing but baseball for like 2 straight days.
Yeah, no, it's a wonderful thing, and I don't think we've ever had this podcast. It is. I don't think we've ever recorded our season preview after the season actually started, but the Giants are a whole one game into the thing, and that's what we just need to go ahead and knock off the top. Let's just get it out of the way. We usually review a whole week or two during the season, but we only have one game to talk about. And, of course, we all know how the season ended last year against the Cubs, and the Giants really retooled a lot of stuff, addressed probably their number one concern, and that was the closer. And they did that. Mm-hmm. And they hired a big gun, Mark Melancon, and he was fantastic in the spring. In fact, he didn't allow a run. In fact, yesterday, with a 1-run lead in the 9th inning, he got the first 2 outs. And despite the fact that Elias Sports Bureau predicted that they had a 5% chance of winning that game, the Diamondbacks, after 2 outs and no one on, that 5% came to fruition. So what are you going to do? It's baseball, right? 4 hits in a row. But in a nutshell, what do you guys think about the game itself leading up to the implosion in the 9th?
I mean, this is what we signed up to come back to, guys. Sort of. Kind of.
Well, it's crazy the way that it ended. It's basically the last 2 games that have counted for the Giants have ended in very similar fashion. It's just frustrating.
It was a very jarring fashion, too, after such a great display with Bum, hitting the first homer and then hitting the second homer to take the lead, saying, screw this, putting on his back. And then Law kind of kicked it away, but then the Giants still, managed to scratch across a run and take the lead. And then all of a sudden, all right, they're cruising in the opening day win. Things are good. And then it was just bang, bang, dink, doink. It was over.
Definitely the dink and doink, to be sure.
Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I was saying. I had a fantasy draft yesterday with my buddies, my old college buddies up in Marin, and we were watching the game, and it was fun. It was a great game. First of all, he was perfect through the first 16 batters, by the way. We got to address that.
Call it what it is.
Yeah, I mean, we were all talking about it. I don't believe in any jinxes or anything like that, but I did have an A's fan, or a friend who's an A's fan, he actually did say, I'm cursing it right now. It's a perfect game. I'm not supposed to say that. And we're like, we've already said it. Very next hitter got that triple down the line. But
because he's the only guy in America who said it out loud.
No,
remember, no one else had cursed it before he cursed it.
No one else had, only him. No, he was fantastic yesterday. And the way he gave up those 3 runs in that inning, and the way Melancon essentially melted down with 2 outs in the 9th, everything was just clustered. You know, it's hard because they always say, you know, he went 7 and sprinkled, 10 hits through 7 or something like that. And that's exactly what it takes. If you string these hits together, you're going to score, and that's what Bum did. I think it was 4 straight hits in that inning, or it was 3 straight. Right? It was a triple, a single, and then a home run, I believe, and suddenly it was 3 runs.
I don't know if anybody hit after that. That was exactly how. I mean, because he was dominant. He threw harder yesterday than he threw in all of 2016. Mm-hmm. And you saw for a couple of those innings, we all saw the swagger. We knew, he was just going to rear back and fire. There were a couple challenge fastballs, but he was working the curve. Like, Bum looked as good as he's looked. And if he's going to pitch like that, 8 times last year, he left with a lead and the bullpen blew it. Yeah. And that was the most in the San Francisco Giants era. And he starts out the season like that, but it's a good sign when he's pitching like that. As long as he doesn't lose like he did for those 2-3 batters, he needs to scatter those, like you said, instead of cluster it.
Yeah, it's true. But you're right, though. When Bumgarner's got swagger, the whole team can keep rolling. But Bumgarner also can swagger without him. But he's already kind of put himself in as, hey, I'm going to be here every 5th day. So just, every time we get around to mine, just buckle up and deal with it. I got this. And it is going to be up to the rest of the team to carry through on that. But man, he looked good. Like, it's a nice, reassuring thing to come back to have your starter / jewel of your rotation just roll up and start just putting up zeros right away. So it was hard for me to be completely upset about the game. Disappointed, yes, but it was hard for me to be completely upset about the game yesterday because Mad Bum looked as good as he did.
I thought he was going to do it. I really thought he was
going to do it on the opening day perfect game.
Yeah.
And hit 2 home runs, huh? Boy, it wouldn't have been something.
Well, because nobody else was doing anything. The team went 1 for 10 with runners in scoring position. I mean, that's the other culprit for them losing. I mean, Law and then, Melancon, but they didn't hit when they had the chances. There was many missed opportunities yesterday for the offense. It was a carbon copy of how the season ended last year.
Yeah, they had bases loaded. I mean, they did push a run across in the 9th inning, top of the 9th, but they had bases loaded and 1 out.
Push. Yeah.
And they couldn't squeeze anything out. And that was with the big guys up. In fact, I think it was Posey who made the last out there in the inning with the bases loaded.
Did anybody notice that every run that Mad Bum didn't score on his own lonesome involved Eduardo Nunez?
Yes.
One way or another.
He was in the middle of everything.
No, he looked good yesterday. He looked real good. A couple of hits and a couple of stolen bags. Decent defense. I mean, look, the guy stole 40 bases last year. Combined both leagues. I mean, that's who he is. He could potentially hit 20 bombs and steal 40 for these guys this year, which is incredible. I mean, we didn't get that kind of production off of Pablo, or not even, Matt Duffy couldn't even touch that. At least he hasn't shown that. So, for a lot of people who are questioning Nunez,
he's on pace for what, 324? So I or something.
2 stolen bases yesterday. He's going to keep that up.
I was impressed. As somebody who has been underwhelmed by Nunez, I was really impressed. He kind of jumped in there. Span, too. I was so happy he didn't go over. I think he'll be decent. There'll be talk about Nunez in the leadoff spot, I think, again, if he keeps this up. Because if he's in the middle of everything, Giants haven't had a guy like that in a while. They haven't had a guy that gets on and steals and dares pitchers not to throw the ball in the dirt so it hangs for the hitter behind him. Things like that. A guy who forces the issue on the base paths. They really haven't had that kind of player lately. Nunez could bring an element I didn't even realize for this offense.
Almost an element you didn't realize was missing until he started doing it.
Yeah, it was really nice to see yesterday. He was mixing it up. It felt like he was in the middle of everything. It felt like he was our David Eckstein,
Maximum level of grit.
Yeah.
Pesky little mosquito.
Can't grit any harder, but I'm all right with it.
Yeah.
So, okay, we got to talk about the 2 big flies. I mean, these are not... We talk about Paul Bunyan type home runs. That was insane. The first one he hit, okay, I can't call it a Paul Bunyan one, but it exited at 112.5 miles per hour. No Giant in all of 2016 hit the ball that hard. the entire season. It was the hardest hit ball by a Giant since September of 2015. Okay, number one. Second, do you know how high that ball was off the ground at its apex?
12 feet.
No.
12 feet, I love it. 55 feet. Never got higher than 55 feet.
One. Oh, the second one.
No, the first one, the laser.
Oh.
The laser was his first one. The second one was
Seriously?
the moonshot. Yeah.
55?
55 feet.
Man.
I mean, bases are 90 feet long. It was barely more than half the distance. In fact, it's just barely short. Actually, it was shorter than the distance from home plate to the pitcher's mound. That's how high it went. Oh, I love all these StatCast stuff they have. You know, they can chart everything. It had an 18-degree launch angle. That's why it was so low.
He practically hit it on the ground, except that he hit it into the seats.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah, he
Small
hit it so
difference.
hard it had just enough velocity to careen over the fence. And the second one, of course, was a more traditional moonshot, but everyone knew that was gone right at the crack of the bat. I mean, this guy is superhuman. He is just he's fun to see, and now he's leading the major leagues in home runs. So I know that'll last 2 days, but
Well,
still.
he's tied with. Oh no, wait, Harper only hit one. Sorry, maybe Trout will hit a second one right here, and he'll tie him up.
Yeah, no, someone has 2 home runs. Yeah, someone else has 2 home runs. But anyway,
Rougned Odor, I think, but Odor's in the AL, so it totally
That's
doesn't
right.
count.
Yeah, and Trout did not hit a home run.
But yeah, yesterday was your typical bum. Okay, I'm Madison Bumgarner. I have to do everything, and that's what it felt like. Derek Law came in, and he just
It was an old Matt Cain start.
It was.
Yeah,
It was
it
Matt
was.
he got caned basically. He really did. He got caned. And,
Yes or no? I mean, the offense wasn't there, but they did score more than one run.
1 run. That's true.
So
That's
I
true.
will grant him.
Yeah,
that. It
usually he'll
wasn't- it
lose
wasn't a
1-0 or
genuine
2-1.
game.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Derek Law though, he did not look good. I got to admit, he.
Which is a shame because he looked okay through a lot of spring training, but not a good first day.
Nah, he didn't even retire a batter. So that was a rough outing for him.
Well,
of course,
what happened to
One outing,
that pulled him in.
but
That's
nonetheless.
just
what
one
happened to
item.
putting
I know.
Contos in a situation like that, or Strickland? Why is Law like Bochy's anointed 8th inning guy?
Was that the 8th inning?
Yeah.
That was the 8th inning.
Yeah, it was.
I don't know.
Okay, that's
I mean,
right.
Law did look really good for some major portions of last year, so I
Oh, he
get
did.
it. Like Law probably would have been one of the people that would have said, hey, setup guy going in, because Contos, I think, acquitted himself well last year. Strickland had his on and off when he was on. He was real on. Law generally looked pretty good. So, I mean,
Yeah,
I guess I get it. If 8th inning, got to go to somebody who I can generally trust.
Well, it's just weird for Bochy because he's not a guy who seems to trust young guys, and literally everybody else in the bullpen has more experience than Derek Law, and he chose Derek Law for that. So it's like I wonder what his fetish and why he really, really loves him for the 8th inning is. Is he foisting it upon him, or did he feel like Law won the job outright? You know what I mean? That's kind of more what I'm. It's interesting because Bochy loves his vets, and he's trying to trust the young guys like really bad. Problem is they keep screwing them.
Oh man, Bochy's been having some tough times with the bullpen lately. Damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. That's really
Right.
what
That's true.
what it comes
And,
down to.
They're down Will Smith now, so that's not going to help many either.
Yeah, absolutely right. So that kind of segues into one thing I wanted to talk about. It's a little bit further down the list, I think, but so the roster decisions, the 25 man is set now, and of course it can change at any time. But as of right now, I mean, I guess Marrero, you can't say as a surprise. We'll come back to that. But speaking of the bullpen, because you just brought up Will Smith, I don't think there's any doubt that they would have started with 2 lefties if Will Smith had not gone on the shelf for the rest of the year. But the fact is, Ty Block is the only lefty on the roster right now. He's exclusively relying on righties, basically. He's going to have a situational lefty either for
They
a
didn't try to
game,
replace him or anything.
right? Or he also said that Ty Block is his long man. So it becomes that weird kind of hybrid position that he's going to put him in. He could come in for a one out, just a one batter kind of thing, or if they're blowing someone out or they're getting blown out, he's going to come in as kind of your long relief guy. So he's not going to be
feel
doing
like-
these triple switches at any time soon.
Well, I mean, he's probably gonna Block is probably gonna get some individual innings at some point too, just because if he's gonna get stretched out into a starter at some point in the near future, you don't really want to pitch him like a loogie. You want him to be able to face guys on both sides, and Block has shown he can face guys on both sides as a lefty. So I mean, what has been driving me a lot with the question about Ty Block is the thing that I said on the last episode, which is, I want Ty Block starting. I want Ty Block in AAA. And Block sort of forced the issue. He handled major leaguers really effectively over the spring. So personally, I still kind of want Ty Block to be in AAA facing 3 and 4A guys, as it were. But on the other hand, he is going to get to face more major leaguers this way and show that he's ready, especially if, as we all kind of vaguely suspect, he ends up being needed in the rotation in the near future. But the thing that's been driving a lot of my questions isn't how do you use Block in the short term, being the only lefty in the pen, even though, that's a concern. It's how do you use Block in the short term while still looking to potentially using him as a starter in the future.
Yeah.
And so, I feel like there are going to be times that he gets pulled as a loogie because there's another righty warm behind him who has better matchups against the next two guys coming up. And that's just kind of how it's going to be. But there's also got to be times where you let him try and work through an entire inning, whether it's during a blowout or whether it's when you have a 3-run lead, maybe he gives up one and you go, just stick with the kid. You got to try and let him work through this. There's got to be times that you have to see how he's going to handle a full inning, starting without the stretch and just going straight through. How often they do that right now, given that he's the only lefty, I don't know. That's the hard part. When he's the only lefty, it changes his role. And it's weird.
Well, what happens when the inevitable happens? Like you said, he's going to end up taking a start. Somebody's going to get hurt. Somebody might not have
day off, doubleheader, something.
Right, something happens. Who's the lefty in the bullpen then? What's the backup plan? Yeah, what's the backup plan?
You've got to move for Okert somehow at that point. I feel like unless you want to be able to throw all righties and hope that some of them are versatile enough to change the angle on people or whatever, you have to make a move for Okert or Osich or somebody in AAA.
Well, who's this Ramirez guy?
I
he
know
throws hard and he has a shit ton of strikeouts.
I know embarrassingly little about Neil Ramirez, and I'm not even gonna pretend not to admit it. I genuinely wish I could say that I knew more about him, and I have just done an awful job keeping track of him in particular.
Okay, we'll do better on that, internet. We'll figure out more about Ramirez for next time because
he was another surprise in the pen, I would say, especially over an Okert or Osich. But they said those guys, of course, have options, and if I heard it correctly, he basically was out of options. I know he wasn't. I don't even know when the Giants signed him, to be honest, but he was obviously very good in spring training. Not as good as Okert in terms of stats, but his strikeout stuff was off the charts. Yeah. Off the charts, and that's what they're keeping him for.
This isn't Ramirez's first time in the bigs, I should point out. No, his very first season in 2014, appeared in 50 games with the Cubs. So, I mean, he's
that Neil Ramirez.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
There are only so many Neil Ramirez's. Ramirez's are one thing.
Yeah.
But I should point out that in 2016, he did bounce around a little bit. He went Cubs, then Brewers, then Twins. And at each of the stops, his ERA was at least 4. But on the other hand, he appeared in a total of 18 games in 2016 also. So it's hard to gauge too much from that. And I feel like a spring showing in that situation is going to at least be a better indicator in the short run. And, Ramirez looked good. So I just wish I could say I knew more about him. But this is what Baseball Reference tells me.
I'm looking at the bullpen. The bullpen is Block, Melancon, Law, Contos, right. Strickland, Ramirez, and Guerin, right?
Mm-hmm. Pretty much.
So who would you take out of that, for an Okert? Because somebody's going to have to get, yanked out of there because it's inevitable. Block's going to start.
I mean, at that point, I think you're looking to see how they've done so far. And obviously, Block starting is contingent on how he does to a certain extent up to that point. Although I think, by default, you assume that Block is going to be a little different in his start, regardless of how he does out of the bullpen.
Yeah, it's just an interesting domino the Giants put into place. They've never done this because we all look at Block as a starter in the future. It's almost like what the Rays did with Price early on and stuff like that, trying to bring in the young lefty out of the bullpen.
But like, who else? With Smith out and looking at sort of having a bevy of potential arms that were all righties, what was there left to do? Like, I mean, you had a couple of options, like Steven Okert was the logical thought, but like, realistically, looking at how some of these guys performed in the spring and where you got trapped with some of them contract wise, especially knowing that I feel like the front office and Bochy have committed pretty heavily to Derek Law for the moment, so like, you kind of, what else was there to do? Like, the answer maybe wasn't Guerin in that situation, but like, Guerin doesn't pitch the same way the other guys do, and I think Boch wanted him for the different look. So it was kind of like, there weren't that many other options that were lefties that were on the 40 man and available that I think they were ready to put in as a replacement for Smith. And I think that could come back to bite them. But on the other hand, I kind of see how they got there, even though it does make the bullpen look weird and lopsided, but it's not completely unfathomable.
It's just going to be very odd. I think the very first time this happens where, Bochy goes out, brings in Block for a situational thing, right?
Two lefties.
Two lefties, one lefty or something like that. Or maybe a lefty and a righty to close an inning, and then he's pinch hit for the next inning, whatever. He faces one or two batters. But it's in the sixth inning because it's a rough game. The pen's got to come in early. And then suddenly it's the seventh inning, and it's just all you got left is righties for the next three innings, right?
Suddenly it's the eighth inning, and Adrian Gonzalez is up, and you're off by a run.
Exactly. And then suddenly you have your Anthony Rizzos, and Adrian Gonzalez is up, and then you're just like, yep, well, good luck, George Contos. And just,
All right, Hunter Strickland, go get him.
Yeah. And I'm worried about
99 miles
that.
an hour, eat this, power hitter.
Yeah. I'm a major leaguer. You can't hit 98. Oops.
Yeah, I'm worried about that too.
It's going to be interesting because at least last year they had I know Lopez is his last year. He didn't have a great year, but traditionally you got Lopez and you had Will Smith, and then years prior you had Affeldt.
Yeah.
Just having those two lefties, I think is extremely valuable. And if they made the decision to leave Okert off for Ramirez just because of the contract situation, I don't know if that's going to be the best decision, but we'll see.
Well,
that seems unlikely because Ramirez wasn't the same kind of signing. I feel like Ramirez was based mainly on his spring showing, probably.
Yeah.
But
he earned it. Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is too is the Giants. You got to give them credit, and just to put a bow on this, you got to give them credit. They said we're not going to stick a lefty in the pen just for the sake of having a lefty.
And they're
if
not.
you feel like we can get by with the guys we can get by with, we're going to do it. And that's confidence. The bullpen should feel, boosted confidence from the front office for allowing them to do that.
Yeah. And how often are you going to need these guys to throw a Johnny Holstaff game?
Mm-hmm.
With this rotation, maybe once to twice every 5 days tops.
Right.
And that's if Matt Cain does what we're worried Matt Cain will do and not what Matt Cain did at the end of spring. So, like how often, like you're going to have times where you need situational lefties, but how often are you going to have to burn through the entire pen? Hopefully not that often. It feels like it's not going to be that often.
Well, it's crazy. Last year, the Giants were one of a few teams. They had 3 starters over 200 innings. And Matt Moore was like 1.1 2/3 short or something. He was basically 200 innings. All 4 of them pitched over 800 together. And if they continue that, it's insane. And if they do that this year, it'll be the first time in something like 10 years that a team has 4 pitches over 200 innings, which is absolutely within their grasp. But that does speak to the fact that they don't have too many of these blow-up games where they need to have these guys come in the 5th and 6th innings.
No, instead they have Sterling games and give them.
They
up
have
in the
inconsistencies. Exactly. There you go. That's what I was getting to. Especially Samardzija and Moore. Right? They're Jekyll and Hyde.
True.
They can go 8 innings one day, and the next day they're going 5, and Bochy leaves them in just for a little extra mop up, basically.
Right. Or like Matt Moore, blows up in inning number 2 and then suddenly nails it down for 3-3-7.
Yeah, exactly. Because he doesn't want to go to the pen that early. So there's that issue, but I think Matt Moore is going to be a lot better this year. I mean, he was great down the stretch with the Giants at the very, very end, and certainly in the playoffs, he was phenomenal.
He absolutely showed why he deserves to be up with the big club still. There's no reason not to lean on him, but he and Samardzija both definitely were a little shaky on and off.
Yep. Yeah, they were inconsistent. You just didn't know which guy you were going to get from day to day. Cueto and Bumgarner, you'd pretty much lock it down for 4 out of 5 starts, but the other 2 guys, you just didn't know. It was.
I think Moore is going to feed off of being in the rotation with Bumgarner and Cueto. At least, maybe I'm hoping, but I really do.
Seems pretty competitive. I feel like as their game gets upped, I feel like there is always a chance each one of them tries to bring their A game the next start, and so when one of them starts firing, I think there's a chance they all start firing. But at the same time, we've seen some pitchers that tend to be like that, and they still can't get it done. So maybe that's just wishful thinking on my part.
So I heard something the other day. I was not unhappy that Marrero made the team. The guy earned it. 8. I mean, he tied Bryce Harper, led the league in home runs for the spring with 8. And of course, Aaron Hill is a solid vet who definitely has some pop for an infielder, and he's not that bad of a defender. Yeah, and he looked great in the spring. And I think it was Marty Lurie was talking with someone, from front office, not from the Giants, but it was like an MLB reporter or something like that. And they said, "Are you surprised that Marrero and Hill and these other guys and Ramirez made the team?" They said, the Giants are obviously, Bochy does play his favorites, and he has some loyalties to certain people. Obviously, we see this now with Kane, right, with the 5th starter
very
position,
much.
And you've seen it with a few other times before. But when guys dominate spring as much as Marrero and these guys have, you have to give them the shot because, number one, they earned it, but number two, going into the future, let's say some free agent is out there and they're not a proven veteran yet or a solid major leaguer, they're just an up-and-coming kind of person with some raw talent, they might look at the history, or at least their agent will tell them, you know what, don't sign with the Giants because look what this guy did in the spring this one year. He had 8 home runs and he didn't even make the team out of camp. Screw that. And I never really thought of it in that way, kind of like future signings and future players that may or may not want to come to the Giants because all they do is just employ the veterans and the guys they're beholden to. You could go in and hit 8 home runs in the spring and you're not going to make the team. But the Giants, they, to their credit, said, no, hey, you had 8 home runs in the spring, you deserve a shot. Doesn't mean that he's going to get DFA'd 2 months from now, but
doesn't mean he's going to start either,
Well, he might.
Course.
He might get DFA'd. It might, we got a whole list of these. Justin Maxwell, Brandon Hicks.
Oh, we have a long list. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Right. They absolutely do. So that's why it's not a surprise that he makes the team. It'll be a surprise if he's
there in like August. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. If he's starting games in August, yes, then I'll be shocked, honestly.
But I agree that he deserved the shot and that there were other names that you would have looked at and said, well, maybe during the spring, but Marrero really, because Marrero versus Huang was going to be one of those which of these guys needs to make the roster? But Marrero was power on a team that doesn't have power outside of Madison Bumgarner. And when he's on,
you're
Buster
absolutely
Posey.
right. Yeah.
And obviously, Brandon Belt and Buster Posey, when they're on, totally can, but last season wasn't it. And so you're looking at a team where part of the issue was a dearth of power, and you go, well, kids hit 8 home runs. Hasn't looked bad. Hell with it. Try it out.
No, it's going to be fun, and he's going to be platooning, so, with Parker,
8
so
times
we're going to
6.
see what happens.
8 times 6 is 48. That's what I'm expecting.
Oh, by the way, we have a Santiago Casilla alert. So,
yes, he is coming into the game for Oakland.
Yeah, he's coming in for the save attempt. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, they almost gave him. They almost gave him a big cushion, but they only managed to make it a 2-run game.
Got the bases loaded, and then anyway, in other news, here's Santiago Casilla.
Oh,
Happens.
the irony
nice
if he
to
shuts
see him
it
get
down
his-
1, 2, 3.
Yeah, right. Nice to see him hit a landing spot. Let's hope he makes some good use of it,
Yeah. Oh man.
even for the A's. Nah, he was an A for a long time. I can't really be. He had a different name then, but he was an A.
He
for a long
had a
time.
different name then. Yeah.
I still would yell when he would come up for the Giants. I would yell "Go Hyro" and other things, top of my lungs. So, good on him.
I'm sure he looked right. Sure he responded.
While I was in the upper deck in 320, God knows where.
Focused
Yeah,
in.
totally. Every time. Nosebleedsville. Yeah.
Hey, Eric, so you have a great question here, and we were going to talk about it tonight, but not talking about Matt Cain, but how long does Matt Cain keep the 5th starter job? I think that's a great question.
And let's put it out there. The whole seaon is a potential answer. It's just not one that I think any of us are going to say.
It's probably not the correct answer yet.
No, I don't think so.
I really do think
we could start an office pool. Like,
I'm going on the low side. I really am. I'm going 5 starts.
You think so, huh?
And I hate to say that. I do. I personally like the guy. Obviously, I have a personal connection with him, but I just
You're not saying it because you dislike
it. Yeah, exactly.
I would be so happy for you to be wrong, but
I want to be wrong more than anything. But I just there's been nothing the last 2 years that suggests otherwise. There's just nothing, and the spring did not suggest otherwise either.
No, it didn't.
No.
So I
apparently he got some better results working with Nick Hundley. So I think we're probably going to see a 5th starter personal cast situation.
Could be.
I watched some of that last start. He was decent in that last start, but then again, balls still drifted back over the plate or in the happy zone. Or
yeah, but I mean, he was Matt Cain. He would get an ungodly amount of fly ball contact that somehow didn't do anything, and when that's happening, like, you can't tell whether it's luck or whether it's success, but it's working. So it was like a weird, like, I feel good and bad about this at the same time.
Yeah.
Chad, I agree with you. I think it's about 5. I think they're going to see by the end of the month of April that something needs to be done. I don't know if it's, block. I don't know if they decide to go, a different route in the minors with Beatty. I don't know. I don't know what they do.
I could see it going. I could see it going as long as 10, but only if he has a couple of decent starts in those first 5.
Yeah.
And it gets strung out. But I mean, if his first 3 starts, he bombs 2 out of 3 or 3 out of the first 4, they might give him an extra start or 2, get to 5 or 6. And at that point, the Giants brass would have to look at it and say, how many wins can we sacrifice just to try and, let this guy have enough chances to right the ship? It's like, look, he's on borrowed time. I think the string's got to be short on him. It really does, and it stinks. But every win is important. So,
I'm feeling a little more optimistic, or maybe I'm feeling a little more pessimistic about contracts and money. I'm not sure which. I mean, in the end, the Giants want to win, and they have to go with what gives them the best chance to win. But on the other hand, they have sunk a lot of money into Matt Cain, and I understand and get, because he's still not at the point that Aaron Rowan was when they ended up DFAing Rowan and eating that massive contract by any means. But he's, if he can't stick it on this rotation as a 5th starter, then yeah, there's an issue. I think mid-May, which is not a whole lot more than 5 or 6 starts, but
right.
I think by like mid to late May, I think somebody else pushes the issue. I think either BD is ridiculous in AAA or Block looks sterling while he's doing like some long relief or something, but I think something starts forcing the issue, and either Cain has to bring up the level to match, or or the wheels finally come off and we find out what happens. Yeah. But it's, in the end, it's up to him and his body and what it's able to take. And I think that by mid-May or so, I think we find out whether or not what it can take is what we need for a 5th starter.
Yeah. I mean, 5th starters don't need to be that good either. I mean, now a $20 million 5th starter, that's a different story. But again, still, if you're hovering around 4.5 ERA, that's about average, for a 5th starter.
And putting him as the 5th starter kind of says that they're not strictly beholden to contracts. Although, in fairness, these are 4 pitchers that are making an okay amount of bank. I think Matt Moore even is doing kind of okay, even though he was a trade.
But a 4.5 ERA is 3 runs in a 6-inning start. Yeah. I mean, Cain's given up 5-6 runs in a 6-inning start. That's the thing. I don't think Cain's going to even be as good as that's what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid he's going to cluster, and once he loses his location, overthrow and things like that. And I don't know what they do if it happens that way. But, I guess we'll speculate when that happens. But hey, like Ben said, all year long is an option. So who knows? Maybe he shocks the hell out of all of us.
I'll take it. I'll take it, and I will happily eat. Maybe not literally eat crow, because that sounds awful, but I will. happily eat metaphorical crow if he ends up lasting right up to the All-Star break, and I'm good with it.
Yeah.
All right, Eric, you got a couple other questions here. Why don't you take
Yeah,
those?
I was gonna say. So we talked pitching a little bit. We saw Bum yesterday. He jumped out to the perfect game, and Cueto, he like kind of breezed into camp, showed his guns, and it's like, I'm ready. Can either one of these guys compete for the Cy Young this year? Do you think Bum finally has his chance? And to take it a step further, do you think Bum, after yesterday, do you think Bum will finally get his no-hitter this year?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Bum's definitely going to get a no-hitter this year. He's just too good. I mean, yesterday
He
wasn't
wants
thinking
it too
perfect
bad.
game,
I
but
think.
yeah, I mean, it's just I think it's a numbers game. I don't think he's going to get a perfect game. We only have 27, 28 of those ever, so you can't say that. And random people get those, Dallas Braden and others,
Right.
But yeah, I mean, he's just too good. At some point, this has got to crack. I mean, Tim Lincecum had a couple, and Matt Bum is just as
Easily
good,
on
but
that
for a
kind
much
of
longer
level.
time. Yeah. So I think it's going to happen with him.
I mean, Bum and Kane have that same kind of workman-like sort of ability, and I think we've seen Bum get so close so many times as far as just like overall season. I think it's just one thing that pushes him to be able to compete for a Cy Young, to just get him the attention with the voters, and this year could be it.
Yeah.
I mean, all right. And so with the other point, do you guys think Bum or Cueto's capable of a Cy Young season? I mean, it's always Kershaw. It's always going to be Kershaw. We all know it's going to be Kershaw. So besides
Yeah.
Kershaw, is this the year we finally have a guy that like forces it, or do you think that the Giants have a tendency, even their players, to do just enough, and like Cueto sometimes blows up and has an inning or two, but then shuts it down the rest of the way. So will they be satisfied? Not. I don't know. I mean, like one of these years, these guys got to be like top three. Like one of them leads in ERA or something like that, instead of
I
just
feel like
Kershaw.
Cueto's gotten close a lot of times too, though.
Exactly.
Cueto, I feel like, has to be, the way that he has pitched the last several years, he's a perennial contender. It's just a question of whether he's a good enough perennial, like strong enough perennial contender to just be like, top 10 every year for the last several, or if it's going to be the time that he pushes it and gets one. I think both of them can compete. I don't know if we get to a point where we're seriously saying that either of them is one of the top three pitchers in the league. But I think both of them have inserted their names into that conversation so many times that if it's just a can they, like, yes, they can. And they might, but yeah, there's a lot of really good pitchers, and one of them is named Clayton Kershaw. It makes it kind of tough.
And that's the problem with the Cy Young. It's just that you have to have a career year, I'd say, to be a Cy Young. Obviously, Kershaw has a couple, but
Yep.
he's competing against Kershaw. He's also competing against Syndergaard and all these guys. It's rough. Strasburg, yeah, all these guys. I mean, any one of them has the potential to win the Cy Young. Absolutely. And Bum's one of them. But I just wouldn't put him at the top of that list, of course, just given what's been going on the last few years. I mean, if he has his 2.7 ERA again, great. That's not going to win a Cy Young. I mean, he's got to do something even
could win a World Series,
hasn't
but it's
done
not going to win a
before.
Cy Young.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, the one note on Cueto, my last thought on this is Cueto can opt out of his contract after this year. So he might pitch, have one of those seasons that just lights the world on fire. He seems to have a different swagger. His father is going to travel with him this baseball season. His father's never seen him. Tomorrow, we're recording this Monday, April 3rd. Tomorrow, the 4th, Game 2, will be the first time his father ever sees him pitch a major league game in person.
Yeah,
and his father's going to travel with the team and with him all through the season. So Cueto's going to have his family with him, and it's a contract year and all these things. So, like, there's a part of me that has this suspicion that, like, Cueto is just going to be, like, have some locked-in crazy good year. Like, all the things are, like, kind of aligning for him. And I think it's an intangible, you know what I mean? It's just one of those intangibles.
From a narrative standpoint, Cueto is lined up to be a monster. I get it.
Yeah.
No, he is.
I mean,
he is. And Santiago Casilla got the unremarkable save, by the way.
Yeah, it was totally unremarkable. Nothing was really
because of course baseball.
Yeah,
Because
Giants
yes.
blow 2 saves and he gets one.
I know it's game 1. It's funny.
Yeah.
It's just funny.
All right, so it's not only blowing saves. The Giants' offense, we talked about it earlier a little earlier, and how inept it can be. 1 for 10 scoring position. Does the offense get a little better this year? Like, can anyone break 20 home runs? I brought up in the podcast last year, 111 guys hit 20 or more home runs in the majors last year, which was a record in the history of baseball for one season. And Belt led the team with 17. Yeah. Can any of them break 20 this year? Like, can Posey get his power stroke back? Does Belt maybe, bang out 25 finally? I mean, do the Giants even need them to do that?
No, they don't.
I mean,
need
the way
him
this
to do
offense,
it,
they
but
don't need him to do that. They would like. They'd like.
Posey's not going to do it. I think he's done with his power. I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I'm just saying.
I mean, he's evolved into a contact hitter.
Exactly, he's evolved into a line drive hitter, and hopefully he'll be hovering around 290, 300 with 80 to 90 RBI and a high OPS. But
between
he's not going to hit 20 home runs anymore.
Gap hitting, it's like there's plenty of potential there for him. He's always going to be a good player, but that power stroke, just it always felt a little bit ephemeral. Even though we always were like, he's got all the power. Later on, it was like, okay, no, he's got a lot of ability and a lot of contact ability and incredible baseball intelligence, but the power, it doesn't seem like it's going to stick around. I'm leaning Belt, but I will happily give a nod to Hunter Pence.
Yeah, no, I would put my money on Belt. If anyone's going to do it, it's going to be Brandon Belt. Because same thing, Hunter Pence, he's a little bit older. He's been bit with the injury bug. I don't think
his power will sneak up on you real quick.
Certainly can.
So I think there's a perfectly good chance that Pence does it, but my money would be on Belt.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because you almost forget about Pence because if Pence stays healthy, and we've barely mentioned Hunter Pence, a guy who was the heart and soul of the team for a while. We've barely mentioned him. Mm-hmm. If Pence stays healthy for 140 games, they should be in good shape.
Just devastating. Yep.
But if he gets hurt and he's out of the lineup on a consistent basis again, it's going to really screw up that outfield, and it's going to really, wreak havoc for them. And but if he's healthy, he's a guy that could do it. He could hit 20, 25 home runs. Well, he still has the pop.
Do you think this is a year that Brandon Crawford repeats 2015? He did break 20 that year. He had 21.
He did, and I think Brandon Crawford. I mean, he's becoming a better hitter, guys. I really do believe that. I mean, I think this year he's shooting for 275, 285, and I do think that he could approach 20 bombs. He just seems to be swinging with more confidence, looser, freer. I don't know what it is. There just seems to be something about it.
It just looks easier for him.
Exactly. It just looks easier, like he belongs here now. Before he was a shortstop who was an okay hitter. But it looks like he's really settled in.
And like during the WBC, I mean, he was glorious, and he looked like he was just having a good time and just leaning back and raking. Like if any of that creeps into the Crawford that we see this season, like we're in pretty good shape at the shortstop position.
He was hitting a lot of balls right back up the middle too. So he seems to be his swing is in a really good path. I bet he could creep up to it. I bet he could hit 20 just because his swing is in such a good state. He's going to run into a few on accident. Some of them are just going to go. It's just part of it, like I don't want to say Tony Gwynn, but because that's a horrible comparison, but
sure.
You know what I mean? When a guy starts to make more contact and better contact, just a few more are going to go.
Sneaky power. Yeah.
Sneaky power, no doubt.
But, not my pick if we were saying which one's going to break 20. But, he's sort of that like, secret threat where you look up halfway through the season and you realize, wait, he's hit 12. When did he hit 12? Huh. And all of a sudden, he's creeping his way there.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Hey, you guys handle the next one. I'm going to go on mute just for a minute. I'll be right back.
All right. Well... Eric, you put the next one on here actually, and I think it's a really good question. So
Well, because we were talking about guys that made the club. We mentioned Marrero earlier, and apparently Parker and Marrero are going to platoon a little bit in left field. Is anybody going to take the job? Like, can Parker step up and finally do it? Or Marrero? I mean, we talked about it. Can he surprise us and do it? Or is this going to be like a hole that they have to try to fill, like all season long? And maybe, the trade deadline they have to go get somebody, or maybe they pull somebody up, from the minor leagues to give it a shot. Arroyo, I don't know.
You still got guys. Well, and you still got guys that can probably fill in at left who are decent hitters. Like, Huang is floating around in AAA now, or lower possibly. I should have checked that before I got on a podcast. Or like Mac is floating around now. You've got a couple of guys that can rotate out there. I mean, even Aaron Hill could probably make it in left field. So I mean, based on the options that we have now, I'm personally inclined to say that we rotate out left field a lot. That we eventually settle on somebody long enough to get them into the playoffs. But that doesn't necessarily mean that somebody reaches out and takes the job so much as somebody is the least bad. I think that there's always the chance, and we'll get into this in a second because this is something I was talking about, but I think there's always the chance that left field is the thing they reach out and snag towards the trade deadline. But I don't feel like we have any really apparent strong candidates here. Although I've been surprised plenty of times before about that,
It's funny. I didn't mention one guy that is, supposedly going to get some left field work. Mike Morse, when he is healthy again, will be getting some left field work in the minor leagues, I believe.
That's true.
Yeah,
it was his job once.
So who knows? Maybe,
Why not?
that'd be the craziest thing. If
Right.
Mike Morse, he could wrangle the job.
Mike Morse just pulls hits so well in AAA, he takes the job away from Chris Marrero and Jared Parker. Sure, why not, right?
Well, I obviously I don't sound like I don't have high hopes for Parker. I really don't. I don't know what you guys think.
I want to, but I don't feel like he's done anything consistent enough. Like he's done things that have wowed me on occasion on a day-to-day basis, for sure. Like Parker is capable of some big stuff when he gets up to it, but he doesn't stay at a really strong performing level as far as we've seen him so far.
I don't think he's capable of it. He doesn't seem to be able to adjust during an at-bat and lay off a pitch that he keeps fishing for. He doesn't seem to be able to, if a pitcher seems to know his hole, he'll continue to let the pitcher work that hole. And when you watch him, his body movement, it's kind of a herky-jerky motion, and it's tough to duplicate every single time he swings. And I don't know, there's just something about Parker that doesn't scream everyday big league ball player to me. I get that he's got the power and stuff like that, but in my head I kind of have him chalked up and out the door, because he doesn't strike me as, that's why I was pulling so hard for Mac. Mac looks like a ball player. He looks like he'll be able to continue the same repetitive motions for the next 10 years. Parker, to me, he's a guy, I found it. It clicked. And then he goes for 8 games. And then all of a sudden, he's gone for 20 games.
Yeah, I'm with you, Eric. I think he has a little too much length in his swing. And
yes, that's it.
Swings a little too hard. I don't think he can produce consistent results. That's what it is. Certainly, he had his 3 home run game against the A's, and you're going to run into hot streaks like that. But he's going to be so inconsistent that I'm not going to be surprised that if he is platooning and starting 2 out of 3 games, if you assume that he's always going to be playing against right-handers, that by the end of May, let's say 2 months into the season, he's hitting barely over Mendoza, really 210, 220. That's where I think he's going to be. So. And I don't know what the Giants would do at that point. Platooning with Marrero, if Marrero, of course, is outperforming him in his limited starts, maybe he starts taking some of the right-handed starts to see how he does, and keep Parker more on the bench
pinching against righties more.
Pinch hitting against righties. So.
Well, the other thing is injuries will dictate some of this stuff. As we're projecting things upon the season, we all do know that the 25-man roster now is not going to be the 25-man roster even 3 weeks from now. So, That's the thing. It's a fluid situation. So, with all the injuries, it's going to give people like Morse and Huang and maybe even Aaron Hill on the outfield a chance to show that they can fill that role.
So one of the things that I love about this podcast, at least the season preview podcast, of course, are our predictions. And we're not quite there yet. We got one more question proposed by Ben, but I'm getting ready. All right, Ben, what do you got
I'm
here?
bracing myself. So I was thinking ahead because this happens every year. The Giants don't necessarily make a splash at the trade deadline. In fact, they often just don't. It's very rare, and when they have, sometimes it's Matt Moore, and other times it's Carlos Beltran. But barring injuries, like let's assume that everybody stays healthy, at least, or is healthy again by the trade deadline. What position becomes the one crucial chip that you change out in mid-year? Because sometimes it's not the thing you're expecting. Sometimes you look at it and somebody ends up, changing out a chip for a first baseman, and you go, the hell? And then it turns out that turns into Brandon Belt playing left field and this other person playing first base, and suddenly the whole offense locks in and something, But what position becomes the one crucial chip that you change out in mid-year? Even after yesterday, even though I shouldn't make a knee-jerk thing out of this, we have enough people that are like floating around that could potentially left field or shift someone else into left field. I'm leaning bullpen. I think that given that we're not getting Will Smith back until early next season, I think that it's gonna, like, we get into a spot where if anything happens with that bullpen and we can't keep them consistent, the number of options that we can slot in there either gets really thin or starts becoming starting pitchers, both of which can get a little awkward. Like Tyler Beatty probably shouldn't flip into a rotation at this stage in his development. I would have even said maybe Ty Block shouldn't, but at this stage in development, like if he's proving he needs to go against major leaguers, which he is, then fine. But like I feel like it's starting to be like at the AAA level or at the major league almost ready level. It's kind of slim pickings right now.
Well,
so that's my thought.
Who knew Will Smith? Will Smith was going to screw up plans for the Giants bullpen this season. Will freaking Smith, who we got last year for flipping Andrew Susac. I mean, it's so weird how that's a domino that totally fell. I get that they might be looking for bullpen at the deadline. You're probably right. That's probably going to be the one thing that's going to be the biggest focus at this point. I can't see the left field job is the other thing. Those I feel like these are the same things we talked about last year and the year before that, and the year before that. It's kind of amazing.
Because even though we picked up more players and different players from year to year, so many of them have been pitchers. We haven't gone out and picked up a lot because we've had a homegrown team or pieces of a homegrown team for so long that the biggest on-field change that we've made outside of losing Angel Pagan was probably Denard Span, maybe Eduardo Nunez.
That's true.
And like that's not a lot. We have first, second, short, right catcher locked down so hard right now, which is wonderful, mind you, that you're always kind of going to be talking about the same holes in the lineup until one of those guys contracts out or retires or whatever. And we've never had anybody step up and take that left field slot that's homegrown and going to stick around or that's in a position to stick around. It's weird that I feel like Mike Morse is as close as we got, but maybe like
10 different guys in 10 years starting in left field for the Giants. I mean,
that's what I was going to say. I mean, really, since Barry Bonds retired, that's it. There's
really,
been no regular left fielder at all, period. Over 10 years. That's crazy. That's you got to go through a lot of teams to figure that one out.
We had trouble nailing down a right fielder until we got Hunter Pence, too, though. Like, Nate Schierholtz was as close as we got for a while.
That's true. It was 2012. But at least that's been almost 5 years.
That's true.
So it's a pretty good stretch.
We're doing better.
Yeah. Yikes. Now, you say barring injury. So, yeah, I was thinking of, like, knee-jerk, like you said. Span goes down, because he's old and always injured, and suddenly they have two positions they're platooning at all the time. That's going to be
right,
an
or
issue.
else Gorky Hernandez becomes a starter, which is also.
Yeah. By the way, Gorky's
option.
got a lot of crap from people yesterday for that attempted slide to cut off that double yesterday, but in the ninth inning off of Melancon. But my feeling was you had a less than 10% chance of cutting that ball off on your feet, firing to second, and either forcing the guy back to first or getting him at second. I just don't think that would have happened. So I think regardless, he would have made it to second.
Yeah, he would have.
No, but
anyway, yes,
like
Gorky's.
Hernandez has shown us too much good defense for me to be like too upset at him for making a boneheaded move on something that would have been an incredibly difficult play anyway. Yet this time, but like Gorky's looked honestly really good in the outfield last year, and I'm not going to be upset at him for that yet.
Yeah, he almost
except right when it happens.
I'll
be pissed at him, but I'll get over it.
Of course.
Of course.
No, I would
That's how
agree
you
with you. It's got to be bullpen. That's it. It was their open wound last year, and the potential
They were
for
outright
that wound
hemorrhaging.
to reopen this year is there. Maybe not necessarily in the closer position because Melancon should be fine. It's somewhere in the middle there.
Well, quick little sidebar. How many saves do you think Melancon gets? Do you think he has like 40 saves?
I think he's 40.
Do you guys think this was a blip? Do you think that he's going to be fine? I think he's going to be fine.
I think he's
it
going to
was
be
a
fine. I think
It was an opening day with a new team again for the first time in a little bit.
He got
but
Babbitt
he's moved
to
around.
death pretty much.
He also got Babbitt to death. Yes, but like I think it's a blip. I think it depends on the rest of the team too. I think if they keep putting him in positions where he has to make saves, then he's probably going to push 40 or 50.
Yeah.
I think that if the team does what the offense can or what the starting rotation is absolutely capable of, I'd say maybe 35.
He has the most saves in Major League Baseball since 2014, and now he's playing for a team that should win. Definitely over 500. I mean, they should be, right?
Definitely over 500.
Could be around 90 wins.
Way
so.
to not let out your prediction too early.
I
well
didn't
done.
say anything. But yeah, no. I just mean more save opportunities. The only thing I will say about Melancon though is that, by the way, he was hitting 94 yesterday, which looked pretty good. He struck out that first batter on the high cheese at 94. But one of the things that we all know is that he's not a strikeout pitcher. He's a contact pitcher. For a closer, that's somewhat unusual. And so, like you said, he got Babbitt to death.
As a closer.
Yeah, and that's the risk you run by not being the dominant strikeout, more than one strikeout per inning kind of closer, although he did have one strikeout, is the fact
the risk
that...
you run by being that guy is that you might turn into Hunter Strickland. So really, it kind of goes either way.
Chad, what it sounds like you're saying is everything that's supposed to happen happened yesterday, except
but still it didn't happen.
Win. Right.
Everything went right yesterday, and they lost horribly.
He struck out a batter in 2/3 of an inning, and they lost.
He did all everybody
pitched to contact. It's just that the contact worked.
Yeah, but he pitched to contact, and he got BABIP'd a little bit. But you have to also take the flip side. After the first strikeout, that second ball that Panic snagged up the middle, that should have been a base hit. I mean, that was an incredible stop.
Yes,
so
that was a great play.
It could have been a runner on first with one out at that point. So anyway, interesting. He almost allowed 5 hits in a row, actually. So
well,
maybe he wasn't so badly BABIP'd.
Well, he could do it. I mean, but to get 40 saves, the Giants need to win some games, and
the Giants need to get
40.
the ball into the ninth inning up. That's the key. The key: survive through the 8th inning.
Oh man,
keys to the game.
What were they saying last year? Like if the Giants played 8-inning games, they would have had like 8 more wins or something last year.
Yeah,
they
would have clinched in June.
Hilarious.
Yeah, I mean it's so bad, so bad.
Oh, it hurts.
It hurts. Anyway. It hurts because it's true.
It's a coping.
Mechanism.
Coping
mechanism. It's all behind us now. It's the year ends in a 7.
So every year we do this, and it's so much fun. And we
pretty
much
have fun with it.
I do. I've had a pretty good record. I blew it.
That's why you
blew
have
it
fun
this
with
past year. Yeah. We guess how many wins the Giants are going to have this year, and then we throw in the ancillaries, like if they're going to win the West or the wild card or nothing at all. We don't really go further than that. We just predict kind of that first round, if you will. So do I have any volunteers to actually, I'm going to volunteer Willie.
Yeah, good job.
So
Way to
Willie,
go, Willie.
Good job, Willie.
So Willie Dills Gregory, one of the founders of this podcast with Ben, he could not make it tonight. He was in Orlando for WrestleMania for his 1-800-Wrestling podcast
I
with
saw
Jury.
Mikey today. I should have asked him what his predictions were, but
Oh,
too
yeah.
late now.
He's the other founder of
I saw him
Torturecast.
today, but there wasn't time. That's all right.
So unfortunately, he's lost his voice, and his liver, I think, is very abused and non-operational right now. But
I'm sure he's feeling a little emotionally raw. I was, but then I had work today, so I got over it.
you weren't even
Enough
physically
time in
there.
retail, and you're just dead to the world. It's fine.
But he did text his prediction, and so he is going with 91 wins. He says they will win the West by 2 games, and now that's what surprised me right there. Not 91 wins, but he's saying that the Dodgers are going to only win 89. That's questionable.
Or the D-backs,
It's highly
potentially.
questionable. Or D-backs. Yeah, I'm already assuming Dodgers, right?
Right.
What?
And then he
No,
threw
it
in
probably is, but
that Bumgarner will win the Cy Young Award. So what do you guys think about those numbers?
I like them. I'm a fan. I mean,
I hope it happens.
yeah. Like, I'll take
Yeah.
that. I don't know that that's my prediction, but I'll take it.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
man.
Willie's thinking positive. That's good to hear. You know what I mean?
Willie does so often, and I love him for it.
Yeah.
He's
So,
thinking
I mean, I will.
positive. So I don't know if he's all swept up in WrestleMania mania, but he's definitely feeling positive about the upcoming Giants season.
I was gonna say it's gonna be like we'll be at 89 wins, and then suddenly Roman Reigns will walk into the stadium and we'll win the last 2 games because the dude can't fucking lose. Anyway,
Love it.
lest I turn this into a wrestling podcast. So I'd like to do one of those one day.
All right,
This is not it.
So Chad, you opened up the win prediction
Pandora's
totals
box of
All right.
to more
all right.
to
I'll
more
go.
people than us. Do you want to say
Oh,
ours
yes.
and let's share the listeners?
Yeah,
and
you know
then
what?
we
That's a
can
good
share
idea.
it?
Maybe we should share this list first. Okay, so great point. So today I went ahead and shared on the Torchcast site, not only Facebook and Twitter, but also I went to a bunch of the Giants Facebook groups, like the Buster Posey group, Kruk and Kipe, San Francisco Giants podcast, etc. And I posted the question, how many wins do you think the Giants are going to have? And if you share, we'll share it on the podcast. So we actually got 28 responses just today.
Ooh.
And it was just casually throwing it out. So thank you so much for
thanks, you guys.
for
That's
responding. So
Really appreciate that.
going to start reading this in no particular order. These are just the order in which they were received. I'm going to read your name and the number, and just going to read a few, and maybe you guys can pick up, and we'll just kind of to rotate through here. So
Sure.
it's going to be interesting because there's some numbers in here that are quite, I would say, inflated, but we'll get to that. So anyway, all right. Scott Danforth on Facebook said 83. He's actually our lowest guess out of all of our responders.
Well,
and he
hey,
also
what
said,
order?
and they're going to miss the playoffs.
What order are these in? Are these in an order that
Chronological,
came in?
roughly.
Chronological.
Roughly.
The order
roughly.
the order we found them and wrote them down.
Exactly. So it was like,
my
it was like
favorite
Almost
kind
the
of-
order they were written.
so like
That's
one
my favorite
string,
kind of
right? Like
chronological.
one group on Facebook, it was chronological, and I wrote all of those down. Then I would go to the other group and write those down in chronological order. So they're chronological by group. Let's put it that way.
Perfect. Internet chronological order.
Yeah.
This is
Yes.
not fake news.
Not
No, they
fake
are the
news.
order. These are written in the order in which Chad turned his attention to them.
Pretty
Right.
much.
All right.
We
Which
are
is
so
haphazard
thankful for
at
every
best.
single one.
Yes.
So Scott Danforth from Facebook said 83 wins.
Yeah, and he was the low ball of the group, which is pretty amazing because that's still over 500. So thank you, Scott. 92 from Rich Scriven from Facebook. 101, our first century mark by Dan Hood on Facebook. 94 from Steve Marco on Facebook. And an 85 from Greg Calabretta, also on Facebook. We got a few more.
Wow,
here. Go ahead, guys.
Michelle. The next one, Michelle. I think it's Arbois on Facebook. She said 99. That's another high one up there with Dan Hood's. And then Bryn Davies. Hey, Bryn. I follow Bryn on Twitter. I believe I know he's out there. He's a big Giants fan. At Bryn Davies on Twitter. 89 wins. So he's kind of in the ballpark of a wild card spot there. And then Matt. I'm going to say Ganibi on Facebook.
It's Mart.
He said
he runs one of the.
He
He runs a couple of one big Facebook group actually, so he's one of the moderators.
Mart's on board for 102 wins. He's got full confidence in the Giants this season.
It's that starting pitching rotation. What are you going to do? I get it. So we've also got Jim. I want to say Caniris. Jim went in on 88. And also supplied us with the brilliant observation, not to be Captain Obvious, but the team that will help them win the World Series this year will look totally different than the one yesterday.
And I like that comment. That was a good one.
I'm with that. You could take that as that they're going to play differently, or you could take it as there will be none of the same people here. And I think both are correct. We also have William Moore on Facebook, who provided us with a guess of 91. Jackie McKay gave us a prediction of 110 wins. And let's just roll through a couple of these real quick, because we have a couple of Giants boosters providing their predictions for the season. Nancy Woods gave us a suddenly seeming much more reasonable 90, which, I wouldn't rule out for the team this year. Jennifer Wilkin gave us 111, which I might rule out for this year a little bit.
Just maybe.
But the heart is in the right place, and we have seen times where they have proven themselves capable of reaching such lofty heights. So, I'm not mad about it. Teresa Graves likewise said 112, which I would be okay with.
How cool would that be?
Give me the 112 win season,
please,
guys. I'm
112 and 50. How cool would that be?
112 and 50, and at that point, I'm sure that Cueto gets the damn Cy Young. Come on. If that's what it's going to take to get Cueto a Cy Young, bring it on.
Yeah.
Brandon Crawford hits 30 home runs this year. I will take it. I will be happy about it. Myra Main also said 101, so we definitely have some people that think that the Giants are absolutely poised to break the century mark. It's not impossible, and obviously there are plenty of people out there that think so. So maybe I'm completely out on a lark here, but. I can appreciate that we're looking at some big numbers and saying, yeah, they could do that, because sure they could.
Yeah, no, I think 7 of our 28 responses are over 100 wins, or 100 wins or more. So we have some very, very confident Giants fans. I like it. I just wish it would come to fruition. So we also have Jody Smith from Facebook at 91, probably more in the ballpark. Chuck Gibson, 103. So
we like 103 wins around here in San Francisco, except we just don't
they won 103 in 1993 and didn't make the playoffs. Just saying.
Right.
They didn't win 104, right?
Yeah, Atlanta Braves won 104, as we all know. John Helligers with a 98, another lofty one. Mark Nguyen, I've seen him a lot on Facebook. He's very, very active. He has probably more of a reasonable 87, and a Will Bateson at 92, which I think is within the ballpark.
Yeah, and then it starts jumping up again. Jenny Ponting at 96. Charles Stellini also confident, 98. And Dan Gray, another person at the century mark. What'd you say? 7 of 28 people picked over 100 wins.
Mm-hmm.
Dan Gray went
amazing.
right in on the 100, 100 flat. That's all. All right.
That's something else. But then it seems to even out here. It gets reasonable the rest of the way. When we say reasonable, we mean kind of the average of what, if you've been reading their prognostications, generally people have been picking the Giants to come in second in the division and make the wild card. And generally speaking, they're going to need to win somewhere between 87 to 90, 86 to 91 games to do that. So, when we say that the lofty ambitions are there, we're not squashing those ambitions. We're saying the ones are more reasonable because they fall in line with what the quote-unquote general thinking seems to be. just to clarify that.
Yeah, we've got John Char Johnson. We're looking at 89 as a prediction there. At SF Unit N Cali was thinking 92. Steven Edwards was looking at a 94. At E Heels 10 also is in on 92, and at S Svensson 19 is thinking 88 wins for the season for the Giants. All of our respondents actually came out to an average of 95.3, which I think would be pretty much enough to win us the division, and very possibly push us into like the number 2 seed. Easy, probably number 1. I would happily take a 95 average. I'm all about the enthusiasm, but personally, I'm leaning 89 wins, wild card.
Ooh.
I'm leaning 89 wins, wild card, Brandon Crawford, Gold Glove. That's my prediction. So, I also think Madison Bumgarner Silver Slugger, but I feel like that's almost a given at this point. So
well, he didn't get it last year, and like he came out
true.
opening day and said, "F you guys, I'm the best hitting pitcher."
Historic whack. No, really whack.
No, you know what, Ben? I think I'm right with you. I hate to repeat a number, but I think this is the last time I'm going to be able to do this, especially if I'm wrong this year. But I'm going to do it anyway.
Oh yeah, sure. You get to quit after being wrong a couple of times. I don't think I've been right once. You probably shouldn't even take my guess.
I know,
Dangerous,
right?
Man.
That's probably a bad idea, right? No, I'm gonna tout this shit. I'm saying this is the last time I can probably do this because I'm not gonna get lucky again. But in 2012, I guessed 92. They won 92. 2013, I was a little off. I guessed 82. They won 76. But back in 2014, I was right again. Guessed 88. They won 88. And in 2015, I guessed 84. They won 84. So 3 out of 4 years, I was spot on. And then last year, I do have to go back to the podcast and confirm it. I believe I said 92. I know I didn't get it right. And their total was 87. So I was off by 5 again. But 3 out of 5 years, nailing it. I mean, that's not too bad. I mean, being within
3
a
and
couple.
5. We like that around here too.
That's kind of been a little bit of a mantra. But yeah, look, they won 87 last year. I don't think there's any question that, given everything equal, that now we have a new closer that should easily add 4, 5, 6 wins. You'd think, right? Which maybe you would say, okay, 87 plus 5 is 92, so why don't you guess 92? Just shit happens. There's always a buffer factor.
Something comes up.
Yeah, there's always a fudge factor, right? You can't just say, oh yeah, this year's going to be just like last year, except for the closer, therefore they should win 5 or 6 more games. They certainly could. Hell, some of these people guessing over 100, my God, that'd be incredible. But remember, people, the Giants have not won over 100 games in, 24 years? I mean, let's slow our roll here, okay? I don't expect the century mark at all. In fact, baseball, I think, in itself has become, the parity has increased over the years because of free agency. And so I would say that teams crossing the century mark, they do happen every year or every other year, but certainly not 105, 110 wins. That's a thing of a past, I believe. So that's just not a possibility. But yeah, I'd say 89 is probably reasonable, and I'm thinking wild card. I hate to say it. You look at the Dodgers, and they've won 4 National League West titles in a row. They've been proving that they are the best team during the regular season. Obviously, they choke in the postseason. We know this. And this is a beautiful thing. And the Giants have won.
Schadenfreude is lovely.
It is.
But,
and, the Giants have won the World Series in the wild card. And to be honest, if they didn't blow the 9th inning of Game 4 last year, they had Johnny Cueto going in Game 5. And then if they had won that, they would have been against the Dodgers in the NLCS. And that would have been just,
great.
I would have died. I mean, I think my heart would have exploded because of the stress watching that series.
I probably wouldn't have been able to walk for a week. But that's
okay.
In
a way, maybe it's a good thing that didn't happen. But no. point being, the Giants know how to win in October. They really do. I mean, they had won 10 consecutive series until that Cubs series, and they were a hair away from getting into Game 5. They should have been in a Game 5, and they could have well won it and won 11 series in a row. So they're right there. They know how to win in October. Bochy knows how to pull the strings. And
but during the regular season, though,
it's you know what? It's not only Clayton Kershaw, it's not only the bullpen, but their depth is incredible. And you look at their farm system. Their farm system is just churning them out through a turnstile.
Yeah. They
have Julio Urias down in AAA right now. You know, the 19-year-old, is he 20 now by the time? I don't know. Anyways, 19 or 20. I mean, he's going to be their next ace, I think, in a couple of years. So Dodgers are just too deep. Even if they proved it last year when Kershaw went down for, 6 weeks? Didn't matter.
Yeah. The Dodgers are the Hydra of the NL West.
Didn't they get a bigger lead after Kershaw went down? Isn't that what happened?
Well, yeah. I mean, we probably handed some of that to them.
Well, yeah, because we had the big first half and the horrible second half. But, yeah, I just don't think you can count against the Dodgers yet. There's nothing on paper that suggests that the Giants are tremendously better or the Dodgers are tremendously worse. In fact, I would say the Dodgers have actually gotten better. So I just don't think you can put the Giants ahead of them right now. But that being said, anything can happen. We're not talking injuries because we have no idea what's going to happen, and that's the beauty of the season, right? So 89.
So 89
and wild
is your
card.
number 2?
And wild card, yeah.
I mean, as well as Ben, because mine it's lower. I really appreciate everybody's positivity, but I have been so freaking positive for like two straight years, thinking that I was the guy last year that jumped out, said they were going to do it, and then they jumped out to that huge lead. I was riding it high. I was like, yeah. And it's just there's flashes of old in our Giants when they need hits or things like that, and sometimes the lineup doesn't really turn over as good as you want it to, and then there's some stretches when our guys are banged up. So I'm gonna set the bar low this year and say that they win 84 games. And I think that they come in second or possibly third place and don't make the playoffs.
No playoffs. Okay. All right.
I'm at a point where, like, please, I show me something. You know, I've had the faith for 2 years. You know, you need to show me something. I need them to pass through the bar. You know, show me something. And I don't know. You know, if they haven't figured it out the last couple of years, you know, I hope that injuries don't become a problem and things like that. But there's a couple dominoes that could fall that could really send the Giants into a bad spiral, and I'm hoping that doesn't happen. But, you know, it's possible. So as to maintain for that 84, I think they missed the playoffs this year. I think that they have to rethink some things going into next offseason. But
I remember a couple years ago when I guessed 84, 3 years ago when I guessed 84, I got shit for it on the air. So I will not do that to you. Because,
in fairness, though, that wasn't a year after which we had just watched the team struggle on offense and then promptly hand all those leads back anyway.
That's true.
So it is tough to go into this one, admittedly, because, you know, the injury bug didn't have the same presence last year that it did in the year where you said 84.
No, but it's crazy because you do realize that we recorded that season preview right after they won the World Series. That was going into 2015.
Yeah.
And I guessed 84. And that's why I got so much shit.
Yeah.
It was like, they just won the World Series. Are you smoking crack? I don't even know why I chose 84.
Yeah, you're right.
No, you probably listed all the factors. You probably listed all the right factors.
I don't
Arm
remember.
fatigue,
I was probably
fatigue,
drunk.
guys playing more games. Well, I mean, no doubt. Guys playing more games than they have. You know, things like
all
that.
Stuff that you would cite.
You know, that's why I'm going 84 this year and no playoffs. Like, honestly, I mean, I love that. I do. You know,
it's
don't
also
get me
an
wrong,
odd
the
year.
Giants-
I know this even year thing has been proven wrong now. It's inconsistent now, but still.
It sounds weird, but 3 years out of the last championship, show me something again. You know, I need to see that they have the chance to compete for the next few years again.
Yeah. No, agree to that one.
It's still above 500, but yeah, I could see that as a possibility. I mean, hell, it's only 5 games below, you know, Ben and I,
Three
and I
below
mean, five
three below last
games.
year, hell.
5
Yeah,
games. They've
but
already
it's-
blown one of the 5, right?
one of the Oh,
Sure,
man.
here, there it is, and
There it is again.
get that out of the way.
All right, let's put this horse in the barn.
Let's do this. It's late for you out there. All right, so new favorite guy. I'm gonna pick the obvious one, Mad Bum. I mean, 16 consecutive batters before he ran into 3 in a row, which whatever that happens. But more importantly, 2 monstrous home runs. The dude is just like
Monstrous.
I know they've used him as a DH now. They just need to put him in the lineup every day. Just why
That's
not?
the left field
Bad Bum is your
solution.
left fielder when he's
That's
not
your
pitching.
left field
Yeah.
solution. You know, I mean that's it's like the old XFL or the indoor the Arena Football League. You know, you got to play both ways. Maybe he can play every day.
Could
There
you
you go.
imagine though him charging a grounder and then unfurling his body to unleash a throw to the plate? I mean, that would be a sight. It really would. He'd be all limbs flying everywhere.
Wait,
mean,
no, I have
that-
the perfect solution, guys, to our outfield problem. Mad Bum plays first. Belt plays left field. We're good.
Wow.
Oh,
All right. Sorry.
I love that. It was a lot of fun watching Mad
I-
Bum yesterday. I love it.
Oh, it was.
He's an always favorite guy. I'll do my new
Bum
favorite
can
guy.
hit. But is he Micah Owings? Is the question.
He's better.
Probably yes.
Yeah. All right, my new favorite guy is a new guy. I'll take Melancon. He's my new favorite guy, and I'm gonna make this for 2 reasons. One, the obvious, he fits right in because he blew a save yesterday. But 2,
Ow.
he also fits right in because did you see the commercial that the Giants put out? I'm sure it's on their Twitter and on their Facebook, where Melancon
he's
goes
closing
behind
things.
people and he closes things. Yeah. And
yeah.
getting him right involved in that kind of stuff seemed very Giants. And so he's my new favorite guy because he seems to fit like right in with the ball club.
Yeah, that was
Yeah, that one was pretty good. I had a good chuckle over it.
Yeah.
Just sneaks up and shuts
Meet
a
our
drawer
new
behind
closure.
somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Turns around and is like, "What the hell? The drawer is already closed." Melanson sneaks off. I'm actually going to go with a guy that I think everyone was just about ready to like string up at the end of the spring season, and that's Eduardo Nunez. I think Nunez is going to surprise us because I think we really haven't looked at Nunez as the potential offensive force that he can be. And I think that first game really gave us a chance to see more out of him. Like, no one really necessarily expects Nunez to suddenly be the guy that carries the entire team, even though he was that game. Besides Mad Bum, I guess. But Nunez, he has a bat that can work. He's fast. His defense at third has surprised and been honestly really effective. I think that Nunez, minus the, I would say minus the power, but I think minus the power, I think Nunez could turn into a faster Panda at third. And if you're taking out the power, like I'll take that every time. So
I'm picturing a miniature panda at third base now.
it's a Panda on like a scooter because he's faster.
It was I said it early. He really surprised me opening day, so I could totally see why he'd be the new favorite guy. Because
Yeah.
I had him kind of buried a little bit. I was ready to see what Huang had to offer, but Nunez,
Sure.
if he's
Christian
gonna
Arroyo,
do this,
whoever.
if he's gonna do this stuff, I mean, I love him for it. Keep him out there. Find a place for him.
If he plays like this 3/4 of the season, like I'm not going to be upset at all.
Right.
You know. I'm going to go ahead and do my honorary mention again. If you have not watched but plan to watch WrestleMania 33, please cover your ears now or skip ahead about a minute or so. My honorary mention is going to be Mark Calloway, better known as The Undertaker, who it looks like as of the WrestleMania last night has wrestled his last match. He very dramatically removed his gloves and duster and hat and set them down in the middle of the ring. And even when they were taking down everything from the end of WrestleMania and people were filing out, they left the gear in the middle of the ring as they were disassembling it. And it was really touching. And my friends and I basically cried a lot. And it wasn't the whiskey's fault because I didn't take the third shot with them. It was just really sad because he has such gravitas and presence. And it's like watching Omar Vizquel or somebody retire, or like Mariano or somebody, and just knowing you're not going to get to see them come out and pitch and play and be that guy anymore. It was really tough, and it was very sad. And I have a lot of respect to that guy for being as inspiring as he was to so many people, and just being that such a significant part of so many childhoods. So that's my honorary mention for my new favorite guy, The Undertaker.
Nice.
So we'll tip our coffin to the Undertaker.
Right. Don't tip coffins. You don't want to piss the Undertaker off.
Tip
cows.
Tip
I'll
cows,
tip the
not
urn.
coffins.
Oh, tip cows. That's good.
Tip cows, not coffins. Not good advice.
All right, so we're going to get back to our traditional. We're going to skip We Should Hate This Guy because it's too early for that. This is a season preview. We get into that during the season, but
Sure.
why we
I
will
think
win.
we skipped that at the end of last year because we weren't in the mood to hate. We were so full of love. We didn't want to hate anybody.
Right.
we
This
didn't
year
want to
we're just
disturb.
not ready to start hating again yet, but
We're
I'm
just-
sure I feel capable of it. I'm just not set to do it yet.
Right?
Okay, no, I'm gonna. Okay, here's a segue. I am gonna hate on someone, but they're not. They're not affiliated with Major League Baseball. I coached my son's 7-year-old team tonight, and it's called instructional ball. The key word is instructional. Okay, there are no scores, there are no wins, there are no losses, there are no playoffs, there are no standings. Okay, there is a 5-run cap per inning, but that's just to keep the game moving. But there are no official scores. We don't have scorebooks, nothing.
Right.
There's one team in our league that somehow, and there's no draft, it's all random because there's no scouting or anything like that, no tryouts, that has just by chance gotten stacked with these boys, and it's coach pitch. So I go out on the mound and I pitch to our boys and they do to theirs. And they can hit the ball a ton. They hit so well, their pitcher, the coach even throws very, very hard. I mean, like actually line drives, and these kids hit the ball real hard, and our kids are running all over the place, and they're always scoring 5 runs per inning. That I don't have any problem with that because it is what it is. What I do have a problem with, and this is why I hate this guy. I promised my parents that I will put every kid, and we usually get around 4 innings or so in the time limit that we're talking about. It's 3 outs or 5 runs.
Right.
I promise every kid they get at least 2 innings out of the 4 in the infield. Sometimes it's 3. And I always rotate them no matter what. I have a spreadsheet. It details every single number of innings they've played at every single position. And I balance it out exactly. So everybody has within an inning or 2 of playing every single position. Because this is called
it's instructional ball. They need to
I have
feel
kids
try out every position.
that play first base that cannot catch a ball. Okay, that's the route I'm going because that's what it's supposed to be. My lineups are also just like that. Sometimes the worst kids are at the top. Sometimes the worst kids are in the middle or at the bottom. I mix it up, and I have an average draft or batting position, and so that's all balanced out.
Would you say that other teams in the league besides this team tend to do something similar?
Yes. So the other teams we've played in the league do similar things to what I do because, again, it's instructional. There's no wins. There's no losses. It's instructional. This dude absolutely puts his A team out in the infield. Specifically, there's 2 pitchers that you put out by the coach who pitches. So you have 2 boys at the pitching mound. You have a second baseman and a first baseman. And this guy routinely puts his 4 best players at the 2 pitcher positions at second base and first base because that's where the majority of the balls go to. And so what happens is, we hit a ball to the pitcher, they throw him out. We hit a ball to the pitcher, they throw him out. We hit a ball to the pitcher, they throw him out. We scored 1 run in 4 innings. We had 6 or 7 boys reach base. They scored 19 runs, okay? And the problem I have with this is that they have their catcher played all 4 innings, the same boy. The second baseman played all 4 innings, same boy. Pitchers, all 4 innings, same boys. First baseman, all 4 innings, same boy. And my question is, why are you doing this to these kids? And if I was a parent on the other team, I'd be pretty enraged if my kid was always playing in the outfield, again, in an instructional league.
Where no one hits balls to the outfield for the most part.
So, sorry for the tangent. I just needed to get that off my chest. But
Well, you
someone
should
I'm gonna
definitely
go ahead
hate
and
that
hate
guy.
on.
That's
Here's
the guy
what
you should
here's what
hate.
grinds my gears.
Here's what grinds my gears. But
Well, here's up yours, Mr. Overzealous 7 instructional league coach, man.
I imagine him going home at night because he has a Napoleon complex, clearly. And he goes home and he pours himself a little, eighth of whiskey, and he has a cigar, and he goes and he retires in the study, and he sits down after his son is retired to the boudoir, and he goes, "Wow, we won 19-1. Takes in a long drag off his smoke, takes a little swill of his whiskey, and that's the end of his night. So good for him.
No,
Glad
he's trying to figure out why they didn't get the 20th run, man.
There was one inning they could not get 5 runs.
Right,
It's
they only
amazing.
got 4 runs
4.
in one of the
Yeah.
innings. So
They're just going, we failed. We have failed today. You have failed this city.
Yeah, he's sitting back going, "I'll do better tomorrow."
All right. So why will we win it all? I'm going to say difference in the bullpen from last year. Except, yeah. I know. Anyway.
Maybe.
After yesterday. How about that? Okay.
All right.
That works.
I made that shit.
Difference in the bullpen from last year plus yesterday. 161 game season, guys.
That's what I'm looking at. I'll go, even though I picked them to win 84 games and not make the playoffs, I think Bumgarner and Cueto are the reason they win it all. If those two have one of those 1-2 punches that, some of the best teams have had before, where they just feed off each other, I think the team could just feed off that themselves and ride it through the season. So if both Bum and Cueto are looking at sub-3 ERAs and they both, I know wins aren't as big as they used to be, but it's indicative of how well they're staying in the games. If they both have 15, 16 wins, they'll have done that job, and I think that they could then dominate in the playoffs. So I think Bumgarner and Cueto is the reason they'll win it all.
I'm actually going to lean offensively, which is probably surprising right now, but for 2 reasons. One is I'm going to lean with a little more ground and pound. I think there's going to be a lot more very strategic use of the guys that can hit. I think that Panic is going to heat up more than he did last year, and I think we're going to get some contact back out of him. And Panic is such a contact slap hitter that when he's going, you can start sending guys. And when you can start sending guys like Brandon Crawford, who you will forget has a deceptive amount of speed and a pretty decent ability to jump, or guys like Nunez, who has an excellent ability to jump and a pretty solid amount of speed once he gets going, you're going to see more pressuring the defense to be perfect. And there are definitely some teams out there that you cannot pressure their defense to be perfect because they are not. You're going to, I think, see more runs thrown in as Tim Flannery jokingly called it, or more RTI as a stat. I definitely think there's going to be more cases where the Giants force errors out of the other team because they're trying to lever some speed that they haven't necessarily had at spots like third base. Maybe even, dropping in Gorkys Hernandez here and there. Kid's pretty quick, but Nunez has some really nice jumps. But I think it's going to be a little bit more ground and pound and a little bit more forcing the defense not to make mistakes. That's going to manage to get them the rest of the way. I don't think it's necessarily going to be a power threat, and I don't think they're necessarily going to bat around every time. But I think that they're going to be smart, and they're going to try and chain some things together, and they're going to capitalize when there are mistakes to capitalize on. Worked for the United States, hell. Wasn't for Giancarlo Stanton, you swear? No.
No, I know, right? Oh,
Well, it's funny.
Yeah. Those are fun to watch, though.
rough series.
We definitely all chose 3 different things,
Yeah.
That's, so it gives hope for them having a good, solid team this season.
The promise is all there. The promise is there.
Just like it is for every team.
Every team right now, everyone is watching with your team colored glasses. Ours are not rose.
Whatever. The Braves aren't winning at all. They suck. The
All right,
Padres are a mess.
Yeah,
there's some
Padres are a
teams
mess,
that you can just.
Yeah, right.
Oh my God, they are. And thankfully the Giants get to play the Padres 19 times. You gotta hope they beat up on them 14. If they go 14-5 against San Diego and 14-5 against Colorado, they should win the division. But if they play like crap against the lower tier teams, it's gonna hurt them. That was part of what helped them last year. They had a great in division record, and then they didn't do as well outside of the division.
That's true, but I think it's going to be one of those things where if like 2 out of 3 of the parts of the team that can click start clicking, whether it's starting rotation and battery, or whether it's bench, or whether it's the offense figuring out how to be an offense again without trying to be conventional. I think that if 2 of those things hit the ground running, I think the team has a chance to leverage that sweep with it. So, like, they don't have to be perfect. They just have to be good enough. And in the NL West, sometimes that just means good enough to get the wild card, but they just have to be good enough.
I'm just so happy baseball's back. It is so nice to have it every day as a part of life. There's so much other noise in this country that it is so wonderful to have baseball every day now, so that we can all talk about it, look forward to it, write, tweet, think about it. Like, it's just so nice to have baseball back. I'm so happy.
No, baseball is a distraction I think a lot of us need right now. It's a wonderful thing that we have it back into our lives, and I think that we're going to have so much fun talking about baseball and the Giants in this coming year. We hope to come back to you just about every week. I know it's tough sometimes, but we plan on being very aggressive this year, so hopefully we'll be back next Monday. You can follow us collectively at TortureCast or individually at ChadK21, Ben at Fried Duck, Willie at Willie Dills, and he actually has been clearing his schedule, so I think he's going to actually come back to the podcast in a more regular fashion, which is going to be great because he is one of our founders and he has a lot to add. And of course, Eric Nathanson at 2 Out Hits, that's with the number 2. You can also like us on Facebook and check us out on torturecast.com because that's where we post our episodes. You can find it on iTunes and Stitcher and all the other normal spots. Do you guys have anything to pimp before we get out of here?
Well, I don't have anything to pimp. I just want to give a shout out to all the Giants fans I did see at Disney last week when I stayed at Port Orleans for a few nights on vacation. It was nice to see Giants fans represented on the other side of the country. And then if any of you that I talked to have tuned in, Port Orleans was fantastic. I enjoyed the hell out of myself. I hope you did too. So it was good to see Giants fans out there, and it helped make every time I saw a Giants fan, it was part of fun. It was a great little vacation getaway. So it was good to see the Giants fans getting represented down here in Florida.
Nice.
So not really, but a shout out.
I'll go ahead and pump the other big thing I've been doing. I've been working on an online role-playing game that is all about wrestling, because obviously that's something I've been much more into than I ever thought I would the last couple of years. We call ourselves Ace Alley Wrestling, and we are chronicling the lives of an imaginary federation based out of San Luis Obispo. Tune in and you can hear me speak in a Midwestern accent along with a bunch of other random shit, and also with all of us pretend to be wrestlers. The next quote-unquote pay-per-view is a live stream that'll be happening on the Ace of Geeks Twitch channel.
You're going to be doing a live stream. Nice.
Yeah, we do live streams once a month. The next one is April 23rd at 12 p.m. Pacific time. It is our next pay-per-view, Destructive Impulses. If you want to know more, check us out at, I believe it's acealley.wrestling.com. That's ACE, acealley.wrestling.com. And hop on board. We're doing some real weird, silly stuff. There's a lot of fun stuff. There's a lot of great storytelling. And there's a lot of us wishing we were wrestlers very loudly and with dice. So, I'm having a ton of fun. So come on by and find out why.
Related to wrestling, Willie, as I mentioned, was just down in Orlando for WrestleMania. He and Jury, as you would say, Justin Robert Young, have a show called 1-900 Wrestling, I believe. I probably murdered that. He's going to kill me. Anyway.
we'll pimp it for him.
Well, if
next
he
time
wants
we're
to
on.
pimp it, he'll come on the podcast.
Show
He'll
up here
find it.
himself.
Yeah, exactly. He's not here, right? It's his fault that I just can't even remember the name of his podcast. But anyway, they were just down there, and they recorded a bunch of the stuff, not only live, but behind the scenes. So check that out. And he does a bunch of gaming stuff, too, of course. World of Warcraft podcast and Hearthstone Angry Chicken, and he does his live stream every single night. I know. He has way more followers than we will ever hope to collectively.
Actually pimp us sometimes, but still.
Yeah, once in a blue moon.
He's doing big stuff, and if you like gaming or you like wrestling, you'll find it with Willie Dills.
Yeah. All right, so for the aforementioned absent Willie Dills, for Ben and for Eric, this is Chad King signing off on episode 117. We'll see you next Monday for episode 118, when, of course, the Giants will be, 5-1. See you next time. Boom.
A big thank you to everybody for listening to the TortureCast, the podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants. Follow us on Twitter at TortureCast. You can also like us on Facebook or check out our blog at torturecast.com. I also want to say thank you to Ashcon and Bailey for letting us use their song Feeling Like a Giant for our intro. For Ben Lee and Chad King, my name is Willie Dills saying, we'll see you next time.